I never believed in fate until the night I kissed a stranger. It was New Year's Eve, and I'd almost stayed home. Between double shifts at the hospital and taking care of my 8-month-old son, Ethan, the idea of putting on makeup and heels felt like climbing Mount Everest. But my best friend Sarah had practically dragged me out, insisting I needed one night to feel like Evelyn Carter again, not just Mom or Nurse Carter. The party was at some upscale penthouse downtown, all glittering lights and champagne flutes, and people who looked like they'd stepped out of fashion magazines. I felt out of place in my simple black dress, the only semi-formal thing in my closet that still fit after pregnancy. Sarah had disappeared into the crowd within minutes, leaving me clutching a glass of champagne I wasn't even drinking, counting down the seconds until I could reasonably leave. That's when the countdown started. 10, 9, 8. The crowd surged toward the windows overlooking the city skyline. I got swept along, pressed between bodies, the energy electric and overwhelming. 7, 6, 5. Someone bumped into me from behind. I stumbled forward, right into a solid chest. Strong hands steadied my shoulders. I looked up, ready to apologize, and the words died in my throat. He was beautiful in a dangerous way. Dark hair slightly disheveled, sharp jawline, and eyes so intense they seemed to see straight through me. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin and the hint of a tattoo. There was something predatory about him, something that should have warned me to step back. Instead, I froze. 3, 2, 1. The room exploded in cheers. Confetti rained down. Fireworks burst outside the windows in cascades of gold and silver. And in the chaos, in that suspended moment between years, his hand slid to the back of my neck, and he kissed me. Not a gentle, tentative New Year's kiss. This was claiming, possessive, a kiss that made my knees weak and my heart hammer against my ribs. His lips were firm and demanding, his other hand settling on my waist, pulling me closer. I tasted champagne and something darker, something intoxicating. I kissed him back. God help me. I kissed him back like I was drowning and he was air. When we finally broke apart, my lips felt swollen, my whole body trembling. His eyes had darkened to almost black, something fierce and hungry burning in their depths. He opened his mouth to speak, but someone called out from across the room, a sharp, urgent sound that cut through the celebration. His expression changed instantly, hardening into something cold and distant. He looked at me one more time, his thumb brushing my cheek in a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there, stunned, my fingers touching my lips. What just happened? Sarah found me moments later, grinning and oblivious. Did you see the fireworks? They were amazing. Where did you disappear to? I'm not sure, I said honestly, still scanning the crowd for him. But he was gone, vanished as completely as if he'd been a dream. That night, I went home to my babysitter and my sleeping son, changed out of my dress, and told myself it meant nothing. A random kiss at midnight. A moment of madness. I'd never see him again. I was so wrong. The next week passed in a blur of exhaustion. Ethan had been fussy, not sleeping well, barely eating. At first I thought it was teething, but by Thursday I knew something was wrong. His temperature spiked to 103, and no amount of infant Tylenol would bring it down. His little body felt like fire in my arms. I drove to the hospital where I worked, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, whispering prayers I hadn't said since my own mother died. The ER was packed, but Dr. Morrison took one look at Ethan and fast-tracked him to pediatrics. Possible meningitis, she said quietly, her face grave. We need to run tests immediately. Meningitis. The word hit me like a physical blow. I knew what that meant, I'd seen it before, watched parents get news that shattered their worlds. My baby, my sweet boy, his tiny body fighting something that could kill him in hours. They admitted him, started IVs, drew blood. I held his hand while he screamed, my own tears falling silent and useless. Sarah came as soon as I called, bringing coffee and support. But nothing could touch the cold terror wrapped around my heart. "He's strong, Ev," she whispered, squeezing my shoulder. "He's going to be okay." I wanted to believe her. But watching my son's labored breathing, seeing the monitors and tubes, I'd never felt more helpless in my life. That night, I sent Sarah home and curled up in the chair beside Ethan's crib in the pediatric ICU. The lights were dimmed, machines beeping softly around us. I must have dozed off because I jerked awake to the sound of footsteps. A nurse doing rounds, I thought, not even opening my eyes. But the footsteps stopped at our door. I looked up, and my heart stopped. It was him. The man from New Year's Eve, standing in the doorway like he'd materialized from my memories. He wore dark slacks and a black button-down shirt, open at the collar. But it wasn't his clothes that made my breath catch. It was his expression. The cold, dangerous man from the party was gone. In his place was someone who looked devastated. "What are you doing here?" My voice came out as a hoarse whisper. He stepped into the room, his eyes moving from me to Ethan's small form in the hospital crib. Something flickered across his face. Pain, guilt, something I couldn't name. "I heard about your son," he said quietly. His voice was deep, accented slightly, though I couldn't place it. "How is he? How did you—" I stood up, placing myself between him and Ethan protectively. "Who are you? How did you know I was here?" "My name is Elias Romano." He said it like I should recognize it, like it should mean something. It did. Oh God, it did. Elias Romano. The name I'd heard in whispers around the hospital, in news reports carefully worded to avoid libel, in hushed conversations that stopped when certain people walked into rooms. Elias Romano, alleged head of the Romano crime family. The man who supposedly controlled half the city's underground operations. Drugs, weapons, protection rackets. The man the police had been trying to pin charges on for years without success. The man I'd kissed at midnight. "You need to leave," I said, my voice shaking. "Now." "I know what you've heard about me," Elias said, not moving. "Most of it is probably true. But I'm not here to hurt you or your son. I'm here because—" He paused, his jaw tightening. "Because when I kiss someone, I make it my business to know who they are. And when I found out you had a sick child—" He trailed off, his hands clenching at his sides. "That's insane," I whispered. "You can't just show up here because we kissed at a party. You can't—" "I can do whatever I want," he interrupted. And there was the dangerous edge I'd sensed that night, steel beneath silk. "But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want to help." "Help? How exactly do you plan to help my son?" Anger flared hot in my chest, burning through the fear. "Are you a doctor now? Or are you going to threaten the disease into leaving his body?" Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "You have fire. I like that." He took a step closer, and I could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark. "Your son needs specialist treatment. The doctor you need is in Boston, but he doesn't take new patients without the right connections." "I don't want anything from you," I said firmly, even as my heart screamed at me to listen. Ethan needed help. If this man could provide it. No. I couldn't go down that path. Accepting help from the Mafia meant owing the Mafia, and I knew enough about that world to know those debts were never truly paid. "Then don't think of it as for you," Elias said softly, his eyes moving back to Ethan. Think of it as for him. He's innocent in all of this. He deserves every chance to survive. I looked at my son, so small and fragile in that hospital bed, and felt something inside me crack. What kind of mother was I if I let pride stand between my child and his best chance at life? Why? I whispered. Why do you care? Elias was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Because I know what it's like to lose someone you love to something you can't fight. And because when I kissed you that night, I felt something I haven't felt in a very long time. What? I breathed. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something vulnerable beneath the dangerous exterior. Hope. Before I could respond, before I could process what he'd just said, Dr. Morrison burst into the room. Ms. Carter, we have the test results. She stopped abruptly, her eyes widening as she saw Elias. Mr. Romano, I didn't realize you were. That is, I didn't expect. She knew him. Of course she knew him. Everyone knew him. Elias turned to her with that cold, commanding presence I'd felt at the party. Dr. Morrison, I trust you're providing the best care for Ms. Carter's son. Of course, Mr. Romano. Absolutely. She was nervous, I realized. Afraid of him. Good. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to me. My number. Call me when you're ready to accept help, or when you're ready to admit that you already have. Then he was gone, leaving me holding his card, Dr. Morrison staring after him, and my world tilted completely off its axis. Evelyn, Dr. Morrison said carefully. Do you know Mr. Romano? I looked down at the card. Heavy, expensive paper. Just a name and a phone number. We met at a party. She nodded slowly, and I could see her making calculations, trying to figure out the connection. He's a significant benefactor to the hospital, a very generous one. If he's taken an interest in Ethan's case, that could be beneficial. Beneficial. That was one word for it. Dangerous was another. But as I looked at my son, fighting for every breath, I realized I'd already made my choice. I'd made it the moment Elias mentioned a specialist in Boston. I'd make a deal with the devil himself if it meant saving Ethan. I just hoped I wouldn't regret it. I lasted 3 days before I called him. 3 days of watching Ethan's condition stabilize but not improve. 3 days of doctors giving me cautious updates that really meant we're doing everything we can, but it might not be enough. 3 days of that business card burning a hole in my pocket. Elias Romano's name etched in elegant script. A lifeline I was terrified to grab. On the third night, sitting in that uncomfortable hospital chair at 2 a.m, listening to the steady beep of monitors, I pulled out my phone. My finger hovered over his number for a solid minute. Once I did this, there was no going back. I'd be in his world, at least on the periphery. I'd owe him. And from everything I'd heard, everything I knew about men like him, those debts came with strings attached that could strangle you. But then Ethan whimpered in his sleep, and my choice became crystal clear. I dialed. He answered on the first ring. Evelyn. Not a question. He knew it was me. How did you... I started. I've been waiting for your call, he said simply. His voice was different on the phone, still deep and commanding, but somehow more intimate, like he was right beside me instead of wherever he actually was. Is Ethan worse? No, but he's not better either. I took a shaky breath. The specialist you mentioned, in Boston. Can you really get us in to see him? Dr. Samuel Cohen, best pediatric infectious disease specialist in the country. And yes, I can get you an appointment, tomorrow, if necessary. Tomorrow. God, tomorrow. Hope fluttered in my chest, dangerous and desperate. "What do you want in return?" I asked bluntly. Better to know the price up front. There was a pause. I heard what sounded like ice clinking in a glass. "What makes you think I want something?" "Because men like you always want something. So let's skip the games and get to the part where you tell me what this is going to cost me." He laughed, a low, rough sound that shouldn't have sent warmth through my body but did anyway. "You're right. I do want something." "What?" My heart hammered. "Dinner. One dinner with me, after your son is well." I blinked. "That's it? Just dinner?" "Just dinner," he confirmed. "I want to see you again, Evelyn. On purpose this time, not by accident at a party. I want to sit across a table from you and learn who you are beyond a kiss at midnight." It sounded too easy. Too simple. "Why?" "Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you," he said, his voice dropping lower, more intimate. "Because in a life filled with transactions and obligations and people who want things from me, you looked at me like I was just a man. And because that kiss..." He trailed off, and I could hear the want in his silence. "One dinner," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady even as heat crept up my neck at the memory of that kiss. "That's all?" "That's all. You have my word." "And what's the word of a criminal worth?" I regretted it the moment it left my mouth. Too harsh, too blunt, especially when I was asking for his help. But Elias just laughed again. "Fair question. In my world, my word is everything. Break it, and you have nothing. No respect, no power, no control. So when I give you my word, Evelyn, you can trust it more than you'd trust a contract or a promise from any businessman in this city." There was truth in that, I realized. Strange, twisted truth, but truth nonetheless. "Okay," I heard myself say. "One dinner, after Ethan is better." "Good. I'll have a car pick you up at 8 tomorrow morning. Dr. Cohen's office is expecting you." "Wait, I can drive myself?" "You've barely slept in 3 days. You're not driving 3 hours to Boston and back in this condition. My driver will take you, wait while you see the doctor, and bring you home. Non-negotiable." I wanted to argue, but he was right. I was exhausted, wrung out, operating on fear and adrenaline and too much hospital coffee. "Okay," I said again, softer this time. "Thank you, Elias." He was quiet for a moment. "Don't thank me yet. Just take care of yourself. Evelyn, your son needs his mother strong." Then he hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in the dim hospital room, wondering what I'd just agreed to. The car that arrived the next morning wasn't what I expected. I'd pictured something ostentatious. A black limo, maybe, with tinted windows and that obvious mob aesthetic. Instead, it was a sleek, dark blue sedan with a kind-faced driver named Marcus, who helped me settle Ethan's car seat with practiced ease and offered me water and snacks for the drive. "Mr. Romano wants you comfortable," Marcus said as we pulled away from the hospital. Ethan secured safely, and Sarah promising to cover for me at work. "Anything you need, you just let me know." Dr. Cohen's office was in a modern medical building near Boston Children's Hospital. The waiting room was quiet, tastefully decorated, with toys that looked like they actually got sanitized and magazines that weren't from 3 years ago. We barely sat down before a nurse called us back. Dr. Cohen himself was in his 60s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and hands that moved with careful confidence as he examined Ethan. He asked questions, detailed, specific questions that told me he'd already reviewed Ethan's full medical history. "Bacterial meningitis, early stage," he said finally, his tone serious but not grave. "Caught early enough that we have excellent treatment options. But your son's particular strain is showing resistance to the antibiotics your hospital started. We need to change course immediately." He outlined a treatment plan. Different antibiotics, aggressive but safe, with a clear timeline and expected outcomes. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. Mr. Romano mentioned you might need financial assistance with treatment. Dr. Cohen added carefully. I want you to know that's already arranged. Your focus should be on your son, not on bills. I can pay, I said quickly, even though my savings account was laughable and my insurance had a deductible that would take me months to cover. I don't need... Ms. Carter, Dr. Cohen interrupted gently. In my experience, Mr. Romano doesn't make offers he doesn't intend to honor. And he was very clear that your son's treatment is not to be your financial burden. I suggest you let him help. Pride is a luxury sick children can't afford. He was right, even if it killed me to admit it. So I swallowed my pride and nodded. By the time we returned to our hospital that evening, Dr. Morrison had already received Dr. Cohen's treatment protocol and started implementing it. Within 2 days, Ethan's fever broke. Within a week, he was smiling again, reaching for his toys, looking like my baby boy instead of a fragile thing hooked to machines. The relief was so intense it made me dizzy. I cried in the hospital bathroom, great gasping sobs of gratitude and release, letting out all the fear I'd been holding in. Sarah found me there, pulled me into a hug, and didn't say anything about the expensive flower arrangement that had appeared in Ethan's room that morning. No card, but I knew who they were from. Just like I knew the box that arrived at my apartment the next day was from Elias, too. Inside was a simple silver bracelet, delicate and beautiful, with a small charm, a crescent moon. The note was brief, for hope in the darkest hours. I should have sent it back, should have maintained distance, kept this transaction clean and simple. Instead, I put it on my wrist, where it caught the light and reminded me of midnight kisses and dangerous men who made impossible things happen. 2 weeks later, Ethan came home. Not fully recovered, he'd need follow-up appointments and monitoring, but healthy enough to sleep in his own crib, to laugh at his toys, to be a baby again instead of a patient. Sarah helped me get him settled, then gave me a look I knew all too well. So, are you going to tell me about the mobster who's apparently playing fairy godfather to your son? There's nothing to tell, I lied, focusing on arranging Ethan's stuffed animals. Evelyn. She grabbed my hand, stopping me. I saw the bracelet. I know those flowers didn't just materialize. And Marcus, the driver? He's been doing coffee runs for the nurses. Very generous coffee runs. Someone's got it bad, and I don't think it's one-sided. I pulled my hand away, suddenly exhausted. He helped my son, that doesn't mean... You kissed him. I froze. How did you... I saw you. At the party. I was coming back from the bathroom, and there you were, lip-locked with the most dangerous man in the city. She sat down heavily on my couch. Jesus, Ev. Elias Romano? Do you have any idea what you're getting into? I'm not getting into anything, I said firmly, even as my heart called me a liar. He helped Ethan. I owe him dinner. That's it. And then what? You really think he's going to just walk away after one dinner? I didn't have an answer for that, mostly because I wasn't sure I wanted him to walk away. The truth was, I'd been thinking about Elias Romano far too much, not just about what he'd done for Ethan, though that weighed heavy, but about the way he'd looked at my son with something almost like longing. The way his voice had softened when he told me to take care of myself. The way he'd kept his word about everything, asking for nothing more than what we'd agreed. And yes, about that kiss. God, that kiss. Just be careful, Sarah said finally, squeezing my shoulder. I love you, and I don't want to see you hurt. Men like him, they're not built for happy endings. After she left, I stood at my window holding Ethan, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there was Elias Romano, living a life I couldn't even imagine. a life of violence and power and secrets. A life that had somehow intersected with mine in the space of a midnight kiss. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ethan looked good in those photos. Healthy, happy. I'm glad. Photos. What photos? Then I realized. The hospital had a security camera in the pediatric wing. Of course he had access. I should have been angry, creeped out. Instead, I found myself typing back, "Thank you, for everything." His response came immediately. "Still planning to honor our deal? Or are you going to make me chase you?" Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the knowledge that I was playing with fire. I smiled. "One dinner," I typed. "But I choose the place. Deal. Name the day." I looked at Ethan, sleeping peacefully in my arms, healthy and whole. Whatever happened next, however complicated this became, my son was safe. And that was worth any price. Even the price of one more kiss from a dangerous man. I chose a small Italian restaurant in the North End for our dinner, the kind of place where tourists didn't know to look and locals came for actual food instead of Instagram photos. My reasoning was simple. Public enough to be safe, private enough to actually talk. And if things went wrong, at least I'd be surrounded by witnesses. I told myself this was purely transactional. I was keeping my end of the bargain, nothing more. The fact that I'd tried on 5 different outfits before settling on a simple navy dress and spent 20 minutes on my makeup meant nothing. Neither did the flutter of nerves in my stomach as I walked into Carmela's at 7:30. Elias was already there, sitting at a corner table where he could see the entire restaurant. He rose when he saw me, and I was struck again by how he commanded space without trying. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal button-down, the collar open, a silver watch glinting at his wrist. Casual, but nothing about Elias Romano was truly casual. "Evelyn," he said, his voice warm as he pulled out my chair. "You look beautiful." "You clean up nice yourself," I said, aiming for light, casual, unaffected. His lips curved into that dangerous half-smile. I'll take that as a compliment, coming from a woman who's seen me at my best and worst. A waiter appeared immediately, too immediately, like he'd been hovering, waiting for a signal. He knew Elias, I realized. Maybe feared him a little. "Red or white?" Elias asked me. "I probably shouldn't drink. I'm still technically on call if Ethan needs me." "The babysitter has my number," he said calmly. "If anything happens, you'll know immediately." I stared at him. "How do you know I have a babysitter tonight?" "Because you're responsible, and you wouldn't leave your son without excellent care." He leaned back, studying me with those intense dark eyes. "And because I may have had someone verify that Sarah was available to watch him tonight." "You had someone—" I stopped, taking a breath. "You're having me followed." "I'm keeping you safe," he corrected. "There's a difference." "No, there really isn't. Evelyn." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Do you know what it means in my world when I show interest in someone? When I send my car for them, pay their medical bills, have dinner with them in public?" "I'm guessing it's not subtle," I said dryly. "It's a declaration. It means you're under my protection, whether you asked for it or not. And it means anyone who wants to hurt me might see you as a way to do it." His jaw tightened. "So yes, I have someone making sure you get here safely. And I'll have someone make sure you get home safely. I'm not apologizing for that." I should have been angry. Should have walked out right then. But the fierce protectiveness in his voice, the way he looked at me like I was something precious that needed guarding, it did something to me. "One dinner," I said firmly, even as my heart raced. That was the deal. After tonight, I don't want protection, surveillance, or whatever you call it. After tonight, we're even. Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or determination. All right. After tonight, you're free of any obligation to me. The waiter returned and we ordered. He was right. The lamb was excellent. And yes, I did want the tiramisu for dessert. The wine appeared, rich and dark, and I took a sip despite my earlier protest. Tell me about yourself, Elias said after the waiter left. The real you, not the nurse or the mother. Who is Evelyn Carter? There isn't much separation, I admitted. Being a mother and a nurse is who I am. My whole life is Ethan and work and trying to keep everything balanced. What did you want to be? Before life happened? I smiled despite myself. A writer. I used to fill notebooks with stories, terrible dramatic tales about adventure and romance. I had this fantasy of living in some tiny apartment in New York, writing novels and drinking coffee at 3 a.m. What stopped you? Reality, I said simply. College was expensive, writing didn't pay bills, and then I got pregnant. I paused, defensive. I don't regret it. Ethan is the best thing that ever happened to me. But you wonder sometimes what it would have been like, Elias said softly. It wasn't a question. Don't we all wonder about the roads not taken? I countered. What about you? What did Elias Romano want to be before he became this? An architect, he said, surprising me. I wanted to design buildings, create spaces where people could live and work and feel safe. The irony wasn't lost on me. That's a long way from running a criminal empire. His expression hardened slightly. You don't choose this life, Evelyn. It chooses you. My father was Antonio Romano. You may have heard of him. I had. Antonio Romano had run the city's underworld for 30 years before dying in what the papers called a heart attack. But everyone knew was an assassination. I was 19 when he was killed. Elias continued, his voice flat, controlled. I had a full scholarship to MIT, a girlfriend who wanted to get married, a whole future mapped out. Then my father died, and suddenly I had a choice. Let the family fall apart, and everyone who depended on us get killed or worse, or step up and take control. So you became what he was, I said quietly. I became what I had to be to keep people alive. He met my eyes. You think I'm a monster. I can see it in how you look at me sometimes. And maybe you're right. Maybe I've done things that make me one. But every choice I make for a reason. That's what all criminals say, I said, but there was no heat in it, just weariness. Probably. He took a drink of wine. But here's the difference. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. I don't hide behind legitimacy or respectability while doing terrible things in private. Everything I am openly. That's more than most people can say. I couldn't argue with that. I'd seen enough in my years as a nurse. Enough domestic violence victims who went back to their abusers. Enough addicts created by prescription pills from respectable doctors. Enough corruption in institutions that were supposed to help people. To know that evil wore many masks. You said you wanted to know who I am, Elias continued, his voice softer now. So here it is. I'm a man who controls things I'm not proud of. I have blood on my hands, and I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. But I also take care of my people. The businesses I run, legitimate and otherwise, employ thousands. The neighborhoods I control are safe because I make them safe. Kids can play in parks without dodging needles or gunfire because I don't allow that kind of chaos in my territory. Benevolent dictator? I suggested, a slight edge to my voice. If that's what you want to call it. He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. But here's what matters, Evelyn. What I did for your son. That had nothing to do with power or control or obligation. I did it because when I saw you in that hospital, looking terrified and exhausted and so goddamn fierce, something in me. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. I haven't felt protective of anyone outside my family in years, and then there you were, and all I wanted was to fix it, to take away your fear, to make you smile. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Why me? You don't know me. That kiss was everything, he interrupted, his eyes burning into mine. Don't diminish it because you're scared of what it means. I'm not scared, I lied. Yes, you are. And you should be. He reached across the table, his fingers just barely touching mine. The contact sent electricity through my skin. Because this thing between us, it's not going away. I felt it that night, and I'm feeling it now. And I can see in your eyes that you feel it too. I pulled my hand back, my breathing unsteady. It doesn't matter what I feel. You're right about one thing. You are dangerous. Not just because of what you do, but because of what being around you could mean for Ethan. I can't risk my son's safety for whatever this is. You think I'd let anything happen to him? Elias's voice was rough, almost hurt. You think I'd ever put either of you in danger? You can't promise that. In your world, people use the things you care about against you. You said it yourself. Which is why I have the best security money can buy, why I'm careful about who I'm seen with and what I do in public. He paused. But you're right. There is risk. There always will be with me. So I'll make you a deal. Same as before. What kind of deal? Give me a month. 1 month where you let me see you. Let me prove that I can keep you and Ethan safe. That I can be good for you, not just dangerous. If at the end of that month you want nothing to do with me, I'll walk away. No strings, no obligations. You'll never see me again. And if I say no right now? Pain flashed across his face, quickly hidden. Then I'll still walk away. I won't force this, Evelyn. I won't manipulate or coerce. But I'm asking, begging, if I'm honest, for a chance. 1 month to prove that what I feel isn't just attraction or obsession. 1 month to show you that beneath everything else, I'm just a man who wants to be near you. God help me. I wanted to say yes. Wanted it so badly my hand shook. But I thought of Ethan, sleeping safely at home with Sarah. Thought of the quiet, careful life I'd built for us. Thought of what could happen if I let this man in. I need to think about it, I said finally. Elias nodded slowly. That's fair. Take all the time you need. Dinner continued, the tension easing as we moved to safer topics. He told me about growing up in this city, about his mother who died when he was young, about his younger sister Gianna, who was studying abroad and didn't know the full extent of what he did. I told him about nursing school, about the strange and wonderful and heartbreaking things I'd seen in hospitals, about Ethan's father who'd left the moment he saw the positive pregnancy test. His loss, Elias said quietly. Ethan is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him, I corrected. He saved me in a lot of ways, gave me purpose when I felt lost. When dessert came, the tiramisu was as good as promised. Elias looked at me with something vulnerable in his expression. Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. What were you running from when you kissed me that night? I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. What makes you think I was running from something? Because I was, he said simply. Running from a business deal that went wrong, from expectations I was tired of carrying, from being Elias Romano for a few hours. And then there you were, looking like you were carrying the weight of the world. And when I kissed you. For just that moment, neither of us had to be who we were supposed to be. He was right. God, he was right. In that moment, I wasn't a struggling single mother or an overworked nurse. I was just Evelyn, being kissed by a stranger who made me feel alive. Loneliness, I admitted quietly. I was running from loneliness. From going home to an empty apartment after putting Ethan to bed, from being touched only by my son's small hands or patients who needed care, from the fear that this is all there is, all there will ever be. Elias reached across the table again, and this time I didn't pull away. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a touch so gentle it made my throat tight. "You don't have to be lonely anymore," he said. "Let me in, Evelyn. Let me be what you need." I looked at our hands, his larger and darker, mine smaller and pale, and wondered what I was doing. Wondered if I was brave or stupid or both. 1 month, I heard myself say. But we go slow, and Ethan's safety comes first. Always. The smile that broke across Elias's face was devastating. Pure joy, unguarded and real, transforming him from dangerous to beautiful. 1 month, he agreed. I won't waste a single day. As we left the restaurant, his hand rested on the small of my back, warm and possessive. A car waited at the curb, Marcus again, smiling kindly, and Elias helped me in before sliding in beside me. I should probably go straight home, I said, even as my body leaned toward his. Probably, he agreed. But neither of us moved to tell Marcus our destination. The city lights streamed past the windows. Inside the car, the air felt charged, heavy with possibility and danger and want. "Elias," I whispered. He turned to me, and whatever he saw in my face made his eyes darken. "Tell me to take you home, Evelyn. Tell me to keep my distance. Tell me you don't want this." I couldn't. God help me. I couldn't say any of those things. So instead, I closed the distance between us and kissed him. This kiss was different from New Year's. That had been spontaneous, champagne-fueled, reckless. This was deliberate. A choice. A crossing of lines I couldn't uncross. Elias groaned against my mouth, his hand sliding into my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss. He tasted like wine and tiramisu and something darker, something that was purely him. His other hand gripped my hip, pulling me closer, and I went willingly, my hands sliding up his chest to his shoulders, feeling the hard muscle beneath expensive fabric. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. 1 month, he said roughly. "You're going to kill me, Bella." I laughed, slightly drunk on him. On this. On the feeling of being wanted so intensely. "You'll survive." I'm not so sure. But he was smiling, that devastating, real smile that made him look younger, less burdened. "Let me take you home, before I do something that violates the going slow rule." Marcus drove us to my apartment building, and Elias walked me to my door despite my protests. Sarah opened it, took one look at us, and raised her eyebrows. "Ethan's asleep," she said to me, then looked at Elias. "You must be the infamous Mr. Romano." "Just Elias," he said smoothly, offering his hand. "Thank you for watching Ethan tonight." Sarah shook his hand warily. "Take care of my girl. If you don't, you'll have me to answer to." "Noted," Elias said seriously. He turned to me, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture so tender it made my heart ache. "I'll call you tomorrow." "Okay," I whispered. He kissed my forehead, just my forehead, gentle and chaste, and walked away. I watched him go, and knew with absolute certainty that everything had just changed. The next 4 weeks were a blur of stolen moments and impossible complications. Elias called every day, exactly when he said he would. Sometimes we talked for hours, lying in our respective beds, his voice rough and low as he told me stories about his childhood, about his mother who used to sing opera while cooking, about the first time his father took him to the family warehouse and explained what their business really meant. Other times the calls were brief, just checking in, making sure I was safe, telling me he was thinking about me. He sent gifts, but never flashy ones. Books he thought I'd like. A stuffed bear for Ethan from a local toy shop. Once, a simple gold necklace with a small pendant. the North Star. "So you can always find your way," the note said, "even in the dark." And he was there. Not physically at first. He kept his word about going slow, but in ways that mattered. When my car broke down, a mechanic appeared within an hour, refusing payment because it's handled. When Sarah mentioned her hours had been cut at work, suddenly there was an opening at a better-paying position at the hospital. When Ethan had a follow-up appointment with Dr. Cohen, arrangements were made seamlessly, transportation provided without me asking. "He's good at this," Sarah observed one afternoon, sitting in my living room while Ethan napped. "The white knight thing makes you forget what he actually does for a living." "I haven't forgotten," I said defensively, though that was only partly true. The reality was that I knew what Elias was. I'd done my research, read the news articles, the court cases that never quite stuck, the rumors and whispers. He ran protection rackets, controlled drug distribution, had his fingers in everything from construction to waste management to the Port Authority. He was dangerous, powerful, and by all legal definitions a criminal. But when I was with him, all I saw was the man who remembered how I took my coffee, who asked about my shift at the hospital and actually listened to the answer, who held Ethan with a gentleness that broke my heart, talking to my son in Italian, promising to teach him the language someday. That started in the second week. I'd been reluctant to introduce them properly, but Elias had been patient, understanding. Then one evening, Ethan had been fussy, running a low fever, nothing serious, just teething, and I'd mentioned it in passing during our phone call. "I'm coming over," Elias had said immediately. "You don't have to. I want to. If that's okay." It wasn't okay. It was terrifying. But I'd said yes anyway. He arrived with infant Tylenol and a teething toy, both of which I already had, but the gesture made my throat tight. Ethan had been suspicious at first, clinging to me, but Elias didn't push. He sat on the floor, talking quietly, letting my son come to him on his own terms. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes before Ethan crawled over, curiosity overcoming wariness. 20 minutes before my son grabbed Elias's finger and smiled. Watching Elias's face in that moment, the pure, unguarded joy, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just attraction or gratitude anymore. This was deeper, more dangerous. "He's perfect," Elias had said quietly, looking up at me with those dark eyes. "Just like his mother." After that, he came over more often, always in the evening, after his business hours as he called them with dark humor. We'd order takeout, or I'd cook something simple, and we'd sit on my worn couch eating and talking while Ethan played or slept. Domestic, normal, almost safe. But nothing about Elias Romano was truly safe. I learned that in the third week, when everything went sideways. It started with a news alert on my phone. Gang violence erupts in South District. 3 dead in apparent turf war. My blood ran cold. I knew that district. That was Romano territory. I called Elias immediately. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice tight. "Evelyn, I can't talk right now." "Are you okay?" The news said. "I'm fine, but I have to handle something. I'll call you later." "Elias." "I'll call you later," he repeated more firmly. "I promise. Just stay home tonight. Don't go anywhere." He hung up before I could respond. The hours that followed were torture. I paced my apartment, jumping at every sound, checking the news obsessively. More details emerged. A rival gang trying to move into Romano territory, shots fired, bodies in the street. The police were investigating, but, as always with cases involving organized crime, seemed to be moving frustratingly slowly. Elias didn't call. By midnight, I was frantic. I texted him, called him, got nothing but voicemail. Sarah came over, insisted I try to sleep, but how could I? Somewhere out there, the man I was falling for was in danger, and I couldn't do anything about it. At 2 a.m., someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole, and relief crashed over me so hard I nearly sobbed. Elias. I threw open the door, and my relief turned to horror. He was alive, but barely. His white shirt was torn and blood-stained. A cut above his eyebrow was still bleeding, and he moved stiffly, favoring his left side. His knuckles were raw, split open. Jesus Christ, I breathed, pulling him inside. What happened? It's not as bad as it looks, he said, but winced as I touched his side. Sit, I ordered, my nurse training kicking in. Don't move. I grabbed my medical bag. I always kept supplies at home, and got to work. His shirt was ruined, so I cut it off, revealing more damage. Bruises already forming across his ribs, a shallow knife wound on his shoulder that needed stitches, and various cuts and scrapes. You should be in a hospital, I said, cleaning the shoulder wound with shaking hands. Can't. Too many questions. He caught my wrist gently when my hands trembled too badly to thread the needle. Hey, I'm okay. I've had worse. That's not comforting. I pulled my hand away, angry suddenly, furious. You could have died tonight. Those men are no longer a problem, he said quietly. His voice was different, harder, colder. The voice of the man who ran a criminal empire, not the man who read bedtime stories to my son. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the blood on his hands. Not all of it was his. How many? I whispered. Evelyn, how many people did you kill tonight? He held my gaze. 3, maybe 4. I'm not sure about the last one. The room spun. I sat down hard on the couch beside him, the needle falling from my fingers. This is what I am, Elias said, his voice rough. This is the part you don't see when we're eating takeout and playing with Ethan. When someone challenges me, threatens what's mine, I respond, with violence, with death. Because in my world, that's the only language people understand. You're defending yourself, I said weakly. No. He shook his head. I'm defending my territory, my business, my reputation. That's different. That's choice. He touched my face gently, despite the blood on his hands. I need you to understand, Bella. I need you to see all of me, not just the parts I show you when we're alone. Because if you can't handle this, if knowing what I do, what I am, is too much, then tell me now, before we go any further, before I fall completely in love with you. My heart stopped. What did you say? You heard me. His dark eyes were fierce, vulnerable. I'm falling in love with you, Evelyn. Maybe I was already halfway there after that first kiss. And I need to know if you can love me back, knowing what these hands have done. I looked at his hands. Strong, scarred, capable of both tenderness and terrible violence. Then I picked up the needle and thread. This is going to hurt, I said quietly, returning to his shoulder wound. Try not to move. He was silent as I stitched him up, but I could feel his eyes on me, searching for an answer I wasn't sure I could give. When I finished, I cleaned and bandaged the rest of his injuries, working with clinical efficiency even as my mind raced. Finally, I sat back. I can't, I whispered. Pain flashed across his face. I understand. No, you don't. I looked at him, tears burning my eyes. I can't love you, knowing what you do. I can't let my son grow up in this world. I can't. I stopped, my voice breaking. But I'm going to anyway. God help me. I'm falling for you too, and I don't know how to stop. His expression transformed. He reached for me, pulling me against his chest despite his injuries. his hand cradling the back of my head. "Then don't stop," he said fiercely. "Don't stop, Evelyn. I'll keep you safe. I'll keep Ethan safe. I swear it on my life." "You can't promise that. Watch me." He pulled back, looking at me with an intensity that stole my breath. "I've been in this life for 12 years. 12 years of blood and violence and never caring if I lived or died, because I had nothing worth living for except duty. And then I kissed you. And suddenly, I want tomorrow. I want next month. I want years. I want to watch your son grow up and teach him to be a good man, better than me. I want to wake up beside you and fall asleep holding you and have all the mundane, normal things I never thought I'd want." "Elias, I'll walk away from it," he said suddenly. "The business, all of it. I'll find a way out, and we'll leave. You, me, and Ethan. We'll go somewhere safe, somewhere clean, and start over." "You can't just walk away from the Mafia," I said, even as hope flared painfully in my chest. "No," he admitted. "Not easily, not quickly. But I can work toward it. I can build an exit strategy, transfer power, make it so my family is protected even after I'm gone. It'll take time, maybe a year, maybe 2. But I'll do it. For you. For us." I wanted to believe him. Wanted it so desperately I ached. "What if someone comes after us?" I asked. "What if they see me and Ethan as leverage?" "Then I'll kill them," he said simply. "Anyone who threatens you dies. That's not a promise, Evelyn. That's a fact." The words should have horrified me. Instead, they made me feel safer than I had in years. "This is insane," I whispered. "Probably." He smiled, that devastating smile. "But some of the best things in life are." I kissed him then, tasting blood and antiseptic and him. He kissed me back carefully, mindful of his injuries, but with an intensity that made my toes curl. "Stay," I said when we broke apart. "Tonight. Just stay." "Are you sure?" I nodded. "I don't want to be alone, and you shouldn't be moving around anyway. Those stitches need 24 hours to set properly." So he stayed. I gave him clean clothes, an old t-shirt and sweatpants that were too small but he wore anyway. We lay on my bed, not sleeping exactly, just existing together. His arm around me, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Tell me something," I said quietly. "Something true. Something you've never told anyone." He was quiet for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, "I'm tired. Bone deep tired of pretending to be something I'm not. Of carrying my father's legacy. Of being respected, but never truly known." His voice was rough, vulnerable. "Until you. You see me, Evelyn, the real me. And you're still here." I tilted my head up, kissing his jaw. "I'm still here." "Why?" he asked, and the vulnerability in his voice broke my heart. "Because you read stories to my son in Italian. Because you remember how I take my coffee. Because when you look at me, I feel like the most important person in the world. And because underneath everything, the violence, the power, the darkness, you're just a man who wants to be loved." His arms tightened around me. "I don't deserve you." "No," I agreed softly. "But you're stuck with me anyway." We fell asleep like that, tangled together. And for one night at least, the world outside couldn't touch us. But morning always comes, and with it, consequences. The week after Elias stayed over, things shifted. Not between us. If anything, we grew closer. That night having stripped away our last defenses. But the world around us grew darker, more complicated. First, there were the looks at work. Whispers that cut off when I entered a room. My supervisor calling me in for a friendly chat about maintaining professional boundaries and making sure my personal associations didn't affect my work. She didn't name Elias specifically, but we both knew who she meant. I haven't done anything wrong, I said firmly. I'm not saying you have, she replied, but her eyes said differently. Just be careful, Evelyn. Some people have long memories and longer reach. Then there was the man who started appearing across the street from my apartment building. Different guys, actually, rotating shifts, but always there, watching. They're mine, Elias said when I mentioned it during one of our nightly calls. Protection, like I promised. It feels like surveillance. It's both, he admitted. After last week's incident, other families are watching me, looking for weaknesses. You and Ethan are potential targets. I'm not taking chances. I wanted to argue, but how could I? He was right. Just being associated with him put us at risk. The second complication came in the form of a woman. I was at the grocery store with Ethan when I saw her. Tall, elegant, with dark hair and designer clothes that screamed money. She was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not hostile, but not friendly either. "You're Evelyn Carter," she said, approaching me. It wasn't a question. "Do I know you?" I kept my hand on Ethan's stroller, protective instincts flaring. "I'm Gianna Romano, Elias's sister." Oh. She saw the recognition in my eyes and smiled slightly. "He hasn't mentioned me?" "He said you were studying abroad." "I was. I came home early." She glanced around the store, then back at me. "Can we talk? Maybe grab coffee?" Every instinct told me this was a bad idea. But I was curious. And if I was really doing this, really letting myself fall for Elias, I needed to know his family. "There's a cafe 2 blocks from here," I said carefully. We settled at a corner table, Ethan happily occupied with his snacks. Gianna ordered an espresso, black, and studied me over the rim of her cup. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. "What did you expect?" "Someone harder, more calculating, the women my brother usually associates with." She trailed off delicately. "Let's just say they tend to be aware of the benefits of his position." "I'm not with him for his money," I said stiffly. "I can see that." She leaned forward. "Which is exactly why I'm here. My brother is different when he talks about you. Lighter. He smiles more, and I haven't seen him genuinely smile in years." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to understand what you're getting into." Her voice was quiet but intense. "Elias is trying to protect you by keeping you separate from his world. But that's impossible. Just by being with him, you're already in it. And there are people who will use that. Who will hurt you to hurt him." "He's told me," I said, though my heart raced at hearing it confirmed by someone else. "Has he told you about Sophia?" I froze. "Who?" Gianna's expression turned sad. "His fiancée. 5 years ago. She was killed because of him. Because someone wanted to send a message. Shot in her own home while he was at a meeting he couldn't miss." The blood drained from my face. Elias had been engaged? And his fiancée had been murdered? "He never told me," I whispered. "He wouldn't. That's the guilt he carries every day. That loving him got her killed." Gianna reached across the table, gripping my hand. "I'm not telling you this to scare you away. I actually like you, and God knows my brother needs someone good in his life. But you need to know what you're risking. What Ethan is risking." I pulled my hand back, my mind reeling. "Why are you really here?" "Gianna?" She sat back, sighing. "Because I love my brother. And because I came home early because I heard things. Whispers in the family that there's trouble coming. Someone's making moves against Elias, trying to take his territory. And when that happens, when the violence escalates, the people close to him become targets." "Who?" I demanded. Who's coming after him? I don't know specifics, but I needed to warn you. She stood, leaving cash on the table for her untouched espresso. Be careful, Evelyn, and make sure Elias tells you everything. All the secrets, all the dangers. You can't protect yourself and your son if you don't know what you're up against. She left, and I sat there shaking, Ethan oblivious to my distress as he babbled happily. That night, when Elias came over, I confronted him immediately. Who was Sophia? He froze in the doorway, his expression shuddering. Where did you hear that name? Your sister paid me a visit, filled me in on some things you apparently forgot to mention. I crossed my arms, anger and hurt warring in my chest. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to let me find out some other way? Elias closed the door carefully, his movements controlled. I was going to tell you. It's not easy to talk about. Try. He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked lost. Sophia was my father's choice. An arranged marriage to solidify an alliance with another family. I didn't love her. Not the way I should have. But she was kind, and she deserved better than what she got. Which was? Caught in crossfire meant for me. His voice was flat, dead. The Volkov family wanted to send a message, show that I wasn't as untouchable as I thought. So they went after what was supposed to matter to me. Killed her in our apartment while I was across town handling business I thought was more important. Elias. I found her, he continued, as if he couldn't stop now that he'd started. Came home to our bedroom covered in blood, her body already cold. And all I could think was that she'd died for nothing, because I didn't even love her enough to mourn properly. I was just angry and guilty. So guilty I could barely breathe. I went to him, seeing past the hard exterior to the wounded man beneath. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? She was only there because of me. Only a target because she wore my ring. He looked at me, his eyes haunted. That's what I'm trying to save you from, Evelyn. That's why I have men watching you. Why I'm working so hard to get out. Because I can't lose you the way I lost her. I won't survive it this time. I cupped his face, forcing him to look at me. I'm not her. I know what I'm getting into, especially now. And I'm choosing this anyway. Choosing you. You shouldn't, he said roughly. You should run as far from me as possible. Too late. I'm already in love with you. The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't meant to say them. Not like this. But they were true. Terrifyingly. Completely true. Elias's expression cracked, vulnerability flooding through. He kissed me desperately, his hands in my hair, and I kissed him back with everything I had. When we broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. I love you, he said fiercely. God, I love you so much it terrifies me. Then don't leave me in the dark, I said. Tell me everything. Your sister said there's trouble coming. What trouble? He sighed, pulling me to the couch. The Bratva, Russian mob, have been testing boundaries, pushing into my territory. Small things at first, but escalating. That fight last week was them making a statement. And I retaliated. Made it clear that any further incursions would be met with force. But he hesitated. There are rumors that someone high up in my organization is feeding them information. A traitor giving them intel about my movements, my properties, my personal life. Fear lanced through me. Someone knows about me and Ethan. Which is why I've increased security, why I'm being more careful. He gripped my hands. I'm handling it, Evelyn. I have people looking into who the leak is, and when I find them. His voice turned cold. They'll wish they'd never been born. What if you're wrong? What if there is no mole and the Russians are just smart? Then we adapt. Either way, you and Ethan are protected. I've made sure of that. But his reassurances felt hollow in light of Sophia's death. If someone really wanted to hurt Elias through me, could his protection really stop them? The third complication came 2 days later, in the worst possible way. I was leaving the hospital after a double shift, exhausted, and looking forward to picking up Ethan from Sarah's and going home. The parking garage was mostly empty at this hour, my footsteps echoing off concrete. I didn't hear him approach until it was too late. Strong arms grabbed me from behind, a hand clamping over my mouth before I could scream. I fought, using every self-defense move I'd learned, but he was bigger, stronger. He slammed me against a concrete pillar, and stars burst across my vision. "Message for Romano," a voice said in my ear, Russian accent thick. "Tell him the Bratva don't forget. Tell him Sophia was just the beginning." Then he shoved something into my coat pocket and disappeared into the shadows. I slumped against the pillar, shaking, my mind screaming even though I couldn't make my voice work. It took several minutes before I could move, before I could pull out what he'd left in my pocket. A photograph of Ethan, playing in our apartment, taken from outside our window. I called Elias with trembling fingers. He answered immediately. "Evelyn, what's wrong?" "They found me," I whispered. "The Russians. They have pictures of Ethan. They know where we live." "Where are you right now?" His voice was deadly calm, the voice of a man used to crisis. "Hospital parking garage." "Don't move. I'm sending Marcus. He'll be there in 5 minutes. Stay on the phone with me." "Elias, they threatened—" "I know, and they just made the last mistake of their lives." There was movement on his end, voices in the background. "Marcus is 2 minutes out. When you see him, go directly to him. Don't talk to anyone else." "What are you going to do?" "End this," he said simply. "Once and for all." Marcus arrived exactly when Elias promised, pulling up in the same sedan that had taken me to Boston. I climbed in, still shaking, and he drove without speaking to a house I didn't recognize. Large, gated, clearly expensive. "Safe house," Marcus explained. "Mr. Romano will be here soon." Inside, I found Gianna waiting, her expression grim. "Elias called. Told me what happened. You'll stay here tonight. It's secure." "I need to get Ethan," I said immediately. "I need to make sure he's safe." "Already done. Elias sent people to Sarah's. They're bringing him here now." Relief made my knees weak. I sank onto a leather couch, the photograph still clutched in my hand. Gianna sat beside me, gently prying it from my fingers. "This is what they do," she said quietly. "They find your weakness and exploit it, make you feel helpless." "I am helpless," I whispered. "I can't protect him from this. I'm just a nurse. I don't know how to fight mobsters." "No, but Elias does." She squeezed my hand, and he will. Whatever it takes. Ethan arrived 20 minutes later with Sarah, both of them surrounded by men in dark suits. My son was confused by the strange place and late hour, but calmed when I held him, babbling about his day. Sarah hugged me tight. "Elias's people explained some of what happened. Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I will be." Elias arrived near midnight, and I knew immediately that something had changed. There was blood on his shirt cuff that he hadn't bothered to hide, and his expression was carved from stone. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled me into his arms, and held me like he was afraid I'd disappear. "It's done," he said quietly, so only I could hear. "The man who touched you is dead. The one who took that photograph is dead. And I've sent a very clear message to Volkov that if he comes near you or Ethan again, I'll burn his entire organization to the ground." I should have been horrified, should have pushed him away, demanding to know how many people had died tonight. Instead, I held him tighter. "Thank you. You're safe now," he murmured into my hair. "Both of you. I swear it." But as I looked around at the armed guards, the secure house, the fear in Sarah's eyes and the grim acceptance in Gianna's, I realized the truth. We'd never really be safe. Not as long as Elias was in this life. Which meant he had to get out. Whatever it took, however long it required. Before the shadows swallowed us all. The safe house became our home for 2 weeks. Elias refused to let us return to my apartment, saying it was compromised. Instead, we lived in strange limbo. Me, Ethan, Sarah, who insisted on staying, and a rotating cast of guards who were polite but clearly dangerous. Gianna visited daily, bringing toys for Ethan and takeout for the rest of us. Her presence a reminder that we were part of Elias's world now, whether we wanted to be or not. Elias himself was there every night, but disappeared during the days, handling what he called business in a tone that discouraged questions. He came back tired, sometimes injured, always with that haunted look that told me the cost of keeping us safe was measured in blood. "Tell me," I said one night, watching him ice his bruised knuckles. "You don't want to know." "Yes, I do. No more secrets, remember?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I've been systematically dismantling Volkov's operation, cutting off his supply lines, turning his people against him, taking his territory piece by piece. And when I'm done," his jaw tightened, "he'll have nothing left. No power, no organization, no protection." "And then?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "Then I'll kill him myself. For Sophia. For you. For every person he's hurt thinking he could challenge me and survive." The cold certainty in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I just felt tired. This was who he was, what he was capable of. And I'd chosen him anyway. "How much longer?" I asked. "Until we can leave, start over somewhere safe." "Weeks, maybe a month." He caught my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "I'm working on transitioning my businesses to people I trust. Legitimate operations I can sell. Others I can hand off to lieutenants who'll run them without me. But it takes time, Evelyn. You can't just walk away from this life without securing your exit." "What about your family? Gianna? Won't they be at risk if you leave?" "Gianna's going back to school, as far from this as possible. And I'm making arrangements to ensure anyone who comes after her will regret it. As for the rest..." He shrugged. "They've known this was coming. I've been honest about wanting out since my father died. This life was never supposed to be permanent for me. Until Sophia." "Until Sophia," he agreed quietly. "After she died, I threw myself into it. Used the violence and control to avoid dealing with grief and guilt. But that's not living, Evelyn. That's just surviving. And I don't want to just survive anymore." He pulled me into his lap, and I went willingly, resting my head against his shoulder. "Where will we go?" "Wherever you want. I've got money hidden in accounts the authorities can't touch. Legitimate businesses under shell corporations. We could go to Europe, South America, somewhere remote and quiet, where we can just be. Normal. Normal." The word sounded like a fairy tale. "What about Ethan?" I asked. "He'll need schooling, doctors, a community. Then we'll find a small town somewhere, settle in properly. I'll be the boring guy who works from home doing consulting or investments or whatever cover story we create. You can go back to nursing if you want, or finally write those stories you mentioned. And Ethan will grow up safe, loved, never knowing what his mother sacrificed to give him that life." "I'm not sacrificing anything," I said firmly, looking up at him. "I'm choosing you. That's different." He kissed me then, soft and slow, and I felt something settle in my chest. This was right. Dangerous. Complicated. Morally ambiguous. But right. The reality of our situation caught up with us 3 days later. I was playing with Ethan in the safe house living room when Gianna rushed in, her face pale. "Turn on the news," she said urgently. I grabbed the remote, switching to a local station. The headline made my blood run cold. FBI raids Romano properties, alleged crime boss facing federal charges. The footage showed federal agents swarming Elias's office building downtown, carrying out boxes of documents. The reporter spoke over the images. Sources say this is the culmination of a 3-year investigation into alleged racketeering, money laundering, and organized crime activity. Elias Romano, suspected head of the Romano crime family, is being sought for questioning. "Where is he?" I demanded, turning to Gianna. "I don't know. He's not answering his phone." She was scrolling frantically through her own phone. "This doesn't make sense. Elias is always 3 steps ahead of the FBI. He's too careful to get caught like this." Unless someone had betrayed him. The mole he'd mentioned. The traitor feeding information to his enemies. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Ms. Carter, this is Special Agent Rebecca Torres with the FBI. We'd like to ask you some questions about your relationship with Elias Romano." My heart stopped. "I don't have anything to say." "That's your right. But I should inform you that we're aware of Mr. Romano's connection to you and your son. We're also aware of recent incidents that put you at risk. We can offer protection if you cooperate with our investigation." "Protection?" I laughed bitterly. "You want me to testify against him." "We want to help you see that Elias Romano is dangerous, that being involved with him puts you and your child in jeopardy. If you have information about his operations, now is the time to come forward." "Go to hell," I said, and hung up. Sarah stared at me. "Evelyn, maybe you should listen." "No." I stood, pacing. "I'm not betraying him, not after everything." "Even if it means going to prison yourself?" Gianna asked quietly. "Because that's where this could go. Conspiracy charges, aiding and abetting. They'll use whatever leverage they have to get to Elias." She was right. I knew she was right. But I couldn't do it. Couldn't turn on the man I loved, even if it meant saving myself. Elias called 2 hours later. "Are you safe?" he asked immediately. "I'm fine. The FBI called." "I know. They're going to pressure you. Don't say anything without a lawyer present. I'm sending someone over. His name is David Chen, best defense attorney in the city. He'll protect you." "What about you? Where are you?" "Somewhere they can't find me. Yet." He sighed, the sound heavy with exhaustion. "This is the mole's doing. They gave the FBI everything. Financial records, recordings, witness testimony. It's bad, Evelyn. Really bad. Then run. Get out now while you can." "I can't. Not yet. I need to tie up loose ends, make sure you're protected before I disappear." He paused. "There's something else. Something I need to tell you." "What?" "I know who the traitor is. It's Marcus." The world tilted. Marcus, the kind driver who'd taken me to Boston, who'd brought coffee to the nurses, who'd seemed so genuinely nice. "Are you sure?" I whispered. "Positive. And he's been feeding information to both the Russians and the FBI, playing all sides against each other while collecting payoffs from everyone." His voice turned cold. "He's the one who told them about you and Ethan, who gave them the photographs, who set all of this in motion." "Where is he now?" "Dead. I made sure of that an hour ago." No emotion, just fact. "But the damage is done. The FBI has what they need to indict me, and the Russians know I'm vulnerable. I have maybe 48 hours before everything falls apart." "Then we leave now," I said urgently. "Forget tying up loose ends. Just take me and Ethan and go." "I can't." His voice cracked slightly. "Because there's one more thing I haven't told you. One more secret." My stomach dropped. What? Ethan's father. The man who left you when you got pregnant. Do you remember his name? David Parker. Why? What does he... I stopped, realization dawning slowly, horribly. Oh my God. His real name was Dmitry Volkov. The Russian I've been fighting? That's his brother. The room spun. I sat down hard, my mind racing. Ethan's father was Russian mob, which meant my son was connected to Volkov by blood, which meant... That's why they're after us, I breathed. Not just to hurt you. They want Ethan. Dmitry died 2 years ago in a drug deal gone wrong, Elias said quickly. He never knew about Ethan, and his brother only found out recently, probably from Marcus. Volkov's been pushing for control of my territory, while also trying to claim his brother's son. He sees Ethan as rightful Bratva heir. He can't have him, I said fiercely. He's my son. Mine. I know. Which is why I need you to trust me one more time. His voice was urgent. There's a private plane waiting at a small airport outside the city. Gianna knows where. I need you to take Ethan and go. Tonight. Don't wait for me. No. We leave together or not at all. Evelyn. I mean it, Elias. I'm not running while you stay here to die. Tears streamed down my face. I love you. We'll figure this out together. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. I don't deserve you. Too late. You're stuck with me. All right, he said finally. Together. But we do this my way. Can you be ready in 2 hours? Yes. Good. I'm sending someone I trust, Vincent, my second in command. He'll drive you to the airport. I'll meet you there. You promise? You'll actually come? I promise, Bella. On my life. I'll be there. We hung up, and I turned to find Gianna and Sarah staring at me. We're leaving, I said simply. Tonight. Both of you should come. Sarah shook her head. I can't just abandon my life here. They might question you, pressure you. Then I'll handle it. But Evelyn... She pulled me into a fierce hug. Be happy, be safe, and don't look back. Gianna nodded. I'll stay too. Someone needs to manage the transition, make sure his people are taken care of. But I'll visit. Wherever you end up, I'll find you. 2 hours later, Vincent arrived, a tall man with cautious eyes and a professional demeanor. He loaded our minimal luggage into an SUV while I buckled Ethan into his car seat. My son was asleep, oblivious to the chaos his life had become. The drive to the airport was tense and silent. I kept checking my phone, waiting for Elias to call or text to confirm he was on his way. Nothing. We pulled up to a private terminal, and Vincent helped us out. Plane's ready, fueled and filed for a flight to Miami, though your actual destination is somewhere else. Pilot knows the real plan. Where's Elias? I asked, anxiety clawing at my throat. He'll be here. He's never broken a promise yet. But as minutes ticked by, as the pilot warned we needed to take off soon to make our window, I started to doubt. Then headlights cut through the darkness. A car pulled up fast, and Elias emerged, moving quickly but limping slightly. Blood stained his shirt. You're hurt, I said as he reached us. It's nothing. We need to go. Now. He took Ethan from me, cradling my sleeping son against his chest with such tenderness it made my heart ache. Vincent, make sure Gianna stays safe. Everything else. The money, the properties, the organization. It's yours if you want it, or burn it all down. I don't care anymore. Vincent nodded, respect clear in his expression. Good luck, boss. We boarded the plane, the door closing behind us with a heavy finality. As the engines roared to life and we taxied toward the runway, I looked out the window at the city lights below. Somewhere down there was my apartment, my job, my entire life. My past, but beside me was Elias, holding our son, because that's what Ethan was now. Ours. And ahead was possibility. A chance to start over, to be the family neither of us had thought we'd have. "Where are we really going?" I asked as the plane lifted off. Elias smiled, that real, genuine smile that transformed him. New Zealand, small town on the South Island, beautiful, remote, and very far from anyone who might want to hurt us. I bought a house there 2 years ago under a fake identity just in case. It's ours now, for as long as we want it. "Forever then," I said, lacing my fingers through his free hand. "Forever," he agreed. As the plane climbed through the clouds, leaving behind everything we'd known, Elias leaned over and kissed me. Soft, sweet, full of promise. "Thank you," he whispered against my lips. "For what?" "For seeing past what I was to who I wanted to be. For giving me a reason to change. For loving me when I didn't think I deserved it." "You're wrong about that last part," I said, cupping his face. "You've always deserved love. You just needed to believe it." Ethan stirred in his arms, and we both looked down at my son, our son, who'd brought us together through a twist of fate neither of us could have predicted. Below us, the city disappeared into the darkness. Ahead, dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day, a new beginning, a new life. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt hope. Real, honest hope that everything would be okay. Because we had each other. And sometimes, that's all you need to start over. Sometimes, that's everything.